But you have to live in faith. And I took the biggest risk ever doing this movie. Doing it with my money, doing it with my time, bringing in friends to work in it, putting it out there. And I can live with that. I can live with that because I showed up for myself. And that's why, if anyone takes anything away from this interview, I hope it's that. Show up for yourself. Be prepared. Do your thing. And just relentlessly pursue your dream because no one else will.
Filmmaker Magazine presents Back to One with Peter Rinaldi.
Adrian Martinez is an actor. He sat down with me on the Upper West Side of Manhattan to talk about the work.
Do you have a typical way you begin your preparation process for a role? What is that?
It starts with vomit and fear.
It's the combo?
Yeah.
A mixture of it?
Usually I'll go to Papaya up the block here. I'll have a couple hot dogs. It's a controversial technique called Help Me God. Because I never really feel like I have this. You know, each time it's a new beginning. Mm-hmm. And each time it's a puzzle you have to try to figure out. So I get nervous about it. I still get nervous about it after all these years. I still try to work my way in. And I try to find a connection between myself and the character that certainly a compassion for the character. John Casale, one of my heroes, do you know him from?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So he would talk about how when he prepares for a role, he tries to figure out what the character's greatest pain is. Because he says that we all are motivated by the pain or by the avoidance of it. And I certainly could connect to that. So even if you're doing comedy, especially if you're doing comedy, that's a good way to start.
It's so interesting you say, especially when you're doing comedy, because someone would say, like, what is pain in comedy, you know? But even as those words are coming out of my mouth, I'm like, of course it's pain. It's all pain. It's almost all pain is comedy.
Yes. I mean, look at City Lights with Chaplin.
Oh, yeah.
This is a guy that's really having a hard time of it and finally meets someone that he can connect to, and then apparently she's not able to even see him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that's a good way to start.
Yeah. Do you like to do work before you take the words in? Or do you try to just get a jump on getting the words in first?
Well, you have to know the world and the context of the scene. And that makes it easier. So I'll read the script 5 times, like literally 5 times, before I start even worrying about dialogue and memorization. I just really want to understand the world. And sometimes when you read something, you know, your mind spaces out. So read it again. Oh yeah, I missed that part. Yeah. And you read it again. And I only articulate verbally my scenes. So whenever I speak, that's the line I use. That's what I try to kind of hear myself, because you have to prepare and duplicate the circumstances on the day. So on the day, you're going to be out loud. So when I'm reading the script 5 times, I'm saying my dialogue out loud. Mm-hmm. And I'm really trying to just put the words in my mouth, because it's kind of like molding clay, you see, and you have to get used to the clay and get used to this new structure you're making. And then after you've had a chance to really get to know the world, then I'll write out the scenes myself, freehand. Mm-hmm. There's something really interesting about that, about writing and the ability for the brain to just sort of connect to it more. And then I'll start doing that a few times. And then I'll just read it and read it and read it. And really, what you're really memorizing, though, is the intention. Mm-hmm. Why am I actually saying this to this person? And once you get that down, the words come pretty easy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like laying this layer before the paint. You know, then the paint sticks better.
Yeah. And they have apps now, like Rehearsal, too, and all these different apps that repeat the dialogue. That's just plumbing.
Yeah.
But first you got to understand the world, and then you add the plumbing.
Yes.
I've always thought of acting as kind of like what an architect does. So, there's kind of like, there's Art Deco homes and Spanish homes and Italian villa homes.
Yeah.
Those are the characters.
Yeah.
But it starts with brick and mortar and mud.
Yeah.
All right. So that's you.
Yeah.
That's you. That's your emotional life. That's what you bring to the table. Your intelligence, your talent, your emotional life. Peter Brook said that actors are athletes of emotion. And so I get that. So you bring all that in, and then you add on, he walks this way, he talks that way, he dresses like this, Is he Cyrano de Bergerac with the nose,
Yeah.
But that's sort of like stuff you add on at the end.
Right.
To me, it starts with the brick and mortar and how willing you are to dive in and risk.
You also said that acting is like the priesthood. It's a calling. It's not something that you do.
Yes, I got nervous for a second, but yes, I did say that. Yeah. Now listen, it's a very difficult life.
Right.
Don't buy all the Instagram photos with the red carpets and standing next to stars. That comes after a whole lot of sweat and hard work. I mean, I did plays in every shithole in New York, and I remember doing plays in churches, and we had one rehearsal in the church, and we opened the next day, and this actually happened where we brought in the lights, and the altar was the centerpiece of the stage, and it caved in from the weight of the lights that they had put in. So we had to reblock everything with an audience on its way. Stuff like that. Whoa. It just makes you better for today,
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to put in a lot of time, which is what no one wants to hear.
Right. Talk about Labyrinth. You were part of Labyrinth Theater, right?
Yeah, we did some shows there, yeah. I always think of Phil Hoffman when I think of Labyrinth. He directed me in 2 plays, Our Lady of 121st Street and Judas Iscariot, with Sam Rockwell as Judas.
Wow.
And the big takeaway from him was the work ethic. Because he was actually, when we did Judas, he was preparing for Capote. And he would bring in these tiny little meals for lunch. And I guess he's just trying to lose weight. But I didn't realize he was losing weight for Capote. He never talked about it.
Yeah.
But his work ethic was off the chain. He would always talk in wrestling metaphors. And he would talk about this one wrestler that had won the gold medal like 3 Olympics in a row. In the 4th one, he gave it all he got. He lost. He wound up getting the bronze medal. And he took off his shoes in the mat, and he just like slammed them down. He's sweating and he's crying, and he just pumps his hands into the air, and he just yells out, "That's it. I gave it all I got."
Wow.
And he retired from wrestling. And he said that commitment, that level of intense commitment to the cause, that's what the audience expects on every take, or if it's a play, at every performance. That's the price of the ticket. That's what you got to bring.
Wow.
I shook when he talked about that. Yeah, I was just,
Yeah.
But
So
he was right, and he is right.
And as a director, because of course he was a brilliant actor. But when he's directing you, I can imagine that being both better because he knows what this is like. But I've heard actors say when an actor director is directing you, you always imagine him saying, "I could be doing this better." Was any of that ever going on, or did he have a way to alleviate that within you?
He knew who you were intuitively, and he addressed each actor differently with what he or she needed. Always with great respect, because he understands how hard it is. But he was tough in a good way. He expected a certain level of commitment and excellence. And if you weren't there, he'd let you know about it. And I remember some actors getting upset by that. But I could see what he was doing. He was saying, look, this is the bar. This is what people expect. This is where they're spending their money. Let's show up and let's just do this. And that stayed with me, that work ethic. You know, it's something I always think about before I start every show, or every television or movie, whatever I'm doing. But yeah, he was a good man. Stephen Alley Girgis, who later won the Pulitzer, a wonderful guy, terrific writer. He said, you know, I wrote this character for you. He's kind of out of shape and not mentally fit. Anyway, you'd be perfect for it. I'm like, thanks. And that was Pinky in Our Lady on 21st Street. And then, you know, I was in the company, and then Stephen wrote Judas, and he thought of me for this other
that's
role.
Great. Yeah.
So he would talk to Phil about it. I think Adrian's right for this. It was a terrific, terrific time.
Yeah.
And people flooded to that show. And what's the guy who played the devil? Eric Bogosian was the devil.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, but it was good. And I remember Sam Rockwell, he would come. He was into me a bit. He would like, I could see him like in the wings, like when I came on to do my performance. He would like check me out and monitor my performance and like, okay, yeah, that was good. Yeah.
You could see that happening.
Yeah, he was very supportive.
That's so cool. I never hear anything bad about that guy.
Yeah,
actor.
It's so sad. You know, he's probably at a Wendy's now or somewhere.
He had his moment.
Screaming at someone who wanted extra cheese.
If you had your druthers, would you always be doing plays?
No. And I guess that's...
You know what your druthers are, right? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, if you had all
I'm
the
wearing them
druthers,
right now.
all the druthers that you needed. Not just some of the druthers.
No, I get that. I mean, you know, the plays, the stage is where you truly shine. And obviously we do the TV and film thing because suppose we need the money to live. But really, no, I don't buy into that. Yeah. I just think it's a different skill set. And I actually think film acting is more difficult because when you're doing the stage, you get what, a month to rehearse, you get to bond with your fellow cast, you get the love and support, hopefully, of a live audience. Yeah. And once you're on the stage, no one can stop you or edit you. You're just doing your thing. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Film or television is like you're trying to grow a rose in a refrigerator freezer. Good fucking luck. It has to grow, it has to be spontaneous, it has to be beautiful, you have to be drawn to it. But no one on that set, other than the other actor, in that moment, is going to give you anything. So that's a challenge that not everyone can do. Yeah. And I respect film actors and television actors because it is a discipline and a skill set that is very challenging to do in a very rarefied air with a lot of money at stake, and there's a pressure to it that you have to either rise up to the occasion or not, and you can't do it. I love the stage. I would do the stage a lot more than I'm doing now, but I've got child support payments.
You've been called the sidekick to the stars, or
God,
something like that, right?
Yeah, some press guy came up with that one.
But when you do come on a show or a movie for just a couple days, or maybe even just a day, and you're working with some of these people, what happens when you're not getting a connection, when you're not getting a vibe from them that's going to work? Like, what do you do to correct that? Or do you put it on yourself to correct that?
Well, there are no excuses. Nobody wants to see someone not connecting. You have to bring it, And sometimes, yes, if you're just doing day player work or guest star, you're jumping on a moving train.
Yeah.
But that's on you to be prepared. That's on you to know your dialogue. I always tell actors, count to 5. All right? Now count backwards. That's how well you have to know your words. Because on the day, there's so many distractions. You're standing there, and then the makeup lady's like, oh, just put a little bit. And you're trying to think of your lines,
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, the DP were like, if you could just move a foot. No, half a foot to the left. It just, more to the right, that's it. And it's all happening rapid fast. Mm-hmm. I'm working on Stumptown now. I don't know, they're spending, $3 million an episode?
Wow.
Or something like, because it's got action sequences and it's a big time show. We can't exactly give you a hug and talk about Brando right now. Know your shit and let's do this. That's basically the world.
Yeah.
So when you're doing that kind of work, it doesn't matter how big the star is opposite you. That is basically just another person in the scene. You know your objective. You know what you need to accomplish in the scene. Day player work is kind of tricky because you do want to put, whether you're working one day or as I did with Will Smith in the movie Focus, I was with him for 2 months on that. Each circumstance is the same thing in that you have to bring in something really particular. This is what I always do. A physical manifestation, something that just brings to life the character, It takes what's written on the page and you're adding the sriracha hot sauce to it, you know what I mean?
Yes.
You're the sriracha hot sauce and you're bringing in something that's very particular and unique. As an example, when I did this strange movie called Casa De Mi Padre with Will Ferrell. Mm-hmm. And I always had an avocado with me. I don't know why. But I just thought this character, he just always had an avocado. So whenever he was stressed out, he'll take a bite out of the avocado. Or he's happy, he'll take some bites out of the avocado. And I just kept putting the avocado in the scene. And Matt Piedmont, the director's like, I noticed you like avocados a lot. Yeah. And what I was basically doing was this whole Meisner thing of just basically finding the psychological gesture. For him, it was just eating the avocado, For my character Hernando in The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, he was obsessed with his fern. And the fern represented his one connection to the real world in this corporate empire at Time magazine. And you just find something, some manifestation of who this guy is, either through the behavior or through a prop that you personalize and really make special. And that can happen whether you're, getting back to your question, whether it's you're working on a day, whether you got one line, whether you got 100 lines, it doesn't matter. Who is this guy and what is he doing?
And I can imagine some people like obsessing over trying to pick the right thing, or what if I pick the wrong physicality or the wrong object and it just looks weird. I'm holding an avocado and it just doesn't fit.
Yeah.
How do you know what's the right thing? Is this just instinct?
It's certainly imagination. I'm giving away all my trade secrets. I'm not getting paid. I just realized.
Yeah.
But it's all it's all for the good. To me, it's all about the letter R.
Is this Sesame Street all of a sudden?
Yeah. If you look at the letter R, I break it down into this. The letter R: reveal, relax, remember, rip, and risk.
Ooh. Well, what's the rip part?
Being willing to just absolutely go for it. You allow yourself to be free and fuck up. You allow yourself to just go there. You don't care about whether you're 100% with the dialogue. You don't care what people say or are going to think or how they're going to react. It's certainly based on the text.
Yeah.
It's a manifestation of that. Yeah. But you're willing to go there.
Right.
You know? That's
say
the
them
rip.
again. Rape, ream.
Reveal? No. That was funny. It was a private insight into Peter's law of life. No, reveal. So, reveal who you are.
Yes.
You know, who insert actor's name is.
Yeah.
You know, the very core and soul of who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yes.
And I don't mean take a nap, but I mean be connected to yourself. Be connected to your breathing.
Yeah.
You know, so no matter what set you're on or what stage you're on, you're
I like
breathing.
how that's after reveal. Like that's important, it seems.
Yeah.
You're revealing first, you're relaxing.
Yeah. And you're relaxing, you're breathing, you're connected. Okay, I'm ready to go. Remember the circumstances. Mm-hmm. What's going on in this scene? Is it winter?
Yeah.
Did my wife just slap my face?
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Rip. Really let it go. Really take it on and go for it. Risk. Mm-hmm. The avocado was a risk.
Yes.
It may seem trite and silly, but it's a risk.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't scripted, and so you're taking a chance that the director might think you're crazy.
Right.
But if you feel you got a case, you should present it.
Yeah.
And that's how you start.
Yeah.
So every scene, everything I do from now on starts with the letter R.
Yeah. And what is Stumptown like? Is there room to breathe in the shooting? Like, is it like you were just saying, like you can't? You were just using Stumptown as an example of how you got to have your shit together. But
I feel completely supported by the creative team. Jason Richmond, who put together the show, Greg Rucka, who wrote the graphic novels. They believe in me, and I emailed them with ideas and how I think the character can expand.
Wow.
They're open to it. Either they use it or they don't. But I get an opportunity to feel safe, to come up with ideas. And usually it's harder in television, but if there's a dialogue change, I'll text Jason. I'd like to say this instead of that. Wow. I think it's a little better button for the scene. And he'll say, oh my God, I love that. So he'll tell the director for hire that week, Adrian's going to do this on a take. So that's a rare gift,
Yeah.
But they're investing a lot in me, and you have to come up with it.
Would you call that balls to be able to say, I want to change this line? Or is that something that you would do, that an actor should do? Or is it do you have to be in a certain place to be able to have that?
Well, again, it goes back to the letter R. Remember, obviously if you're working with David Mamet, no.
Right.
But know who you're working with and feel them out, if they're open to stuff. Because we're all just trying to get it right. I mean, Francis Coppola once said famously that the screenplay is like a newspaper. It changes every day.
Oh.
So we're all just trying to get it right in a very heightened place where time is precious. So make sure before you say anything that it's actually better than what's already written.
Right.
Don't waste people's time.
Right.
And I do. I try it out with the people I trust, and oh yeah, that'd be great, And then they either use it or they don't. It's harder in TV though, because it's a very scripted. Yeah. It's gone to standards and all this, and but you still give it a shot.
And it's probably the better the writer, the more open they are to that, because they know what's good.
Well, look at Woody Allen. I mean, he lets you improvise and do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If it works, if it's funnier, if it's whatever, why not use it? You're still going to get the credit.
Right. Right. That's right. That's right.
I think of Dustin Hoffman in Midnight Cowboy when he slams on the car hood. I'm walking here.
Yeah.
That was an ad-lib.
I know. I play that scene so many times recently because I wanted to really see if it really was ad-libbed. I wanted to see if that car was really coming because I couldn't believe it. And I couldn't find any evidence that it wasn't.
Right.
But it just seems like
And I think if he had his druthers,
he did have them.
yeah,
He did have them.
he was
They
going
were
to stay
on.
with that take. Yeah.
Just tell me the impetus to make this movie iGilbert.
Oh my God, yeah.
Like, so what was the kernel of this?
Well, there were three things at play. Number one, like you said, this whole sidekick to the star thing.
Yeah.
Listen, it pays for my life, for 2 homes, for, I do well, I have no complaints. Mm-hmm. But there had come a point where I felt like my opinion of the world that we're in mattered, and I needed to show up for it. It's as simple as that. And, there's a lot going on in the world right now, but I thought about this story because I have a daughter. She just became a teenager, and she's obsessed with her phone, as many of them are.
Yeah.
And I just wondered, and I understand that the neuroplasticity of the brain is affected by the phone use, especially in developing minds. So that's at play, right? And then one day I'm on the subway, and this is a true story. I'm on the 1 train, actually. There was a beautiful woman sitting opposite me. I mean, just like crazy. And a guy I hadn't seen him at first, but he was kind of like at a diagonal to her. And he just like walked up to her face, like I'm inches from her face, with his cell phone, and just started taking photos of her.
Inches from her face?
Yeah, just like right
Wow.
now, just clicking away. And it was basically a rape because he completely violated her. And she's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Moteless, just no emotion, nothing.
Wow.
He gets off the train, says nothing, and she's sitting there shaking. And I thought, who is this guy?
Yeah.
How does that even happen? And so I just sort of started connecting the dots. Like, what's going to happen if we don't keep all this in check? Because we seem to be very drawn to surface connection with social media and whatever, but it seems to be at the price of true human connection.
Yeah.
So then I thought, how can I dramatize this in a way that talks about the loneliness some people may feel and how they cope with it or not cope with it? And I came up with Gilbert. iGilbert is a play on words like iTunes or whatever, because he's obsessed with his phone. He's obsessed with technology, and his whole world is basically through the photos of the people he takes pictures of. And yet he, at some point, meets someone played by Dasha Polanco, who's, I think, terrific in the movie.
Yeah, she is.
Who now we have a real person. So do I choose the digital life or the real human one? And it's an allegory for our time, And I just felt compelled to talk about it.
If I didn't know the story you just told me right now, I would say I would think that this was really personal for you. Like that this was, if I didn't know you, if this was the first movie I saw of you, I would think that you're making this story. You are this guy.
It's a documentary.
Yeah, this was how connected you were to this character.
Good. That's what I'm trying to do with every role.
Yeah.
You think it's a documentary of this character.
And the relationship that you have with your mother in the movie. And we get to understand how this loneliness is born and is kind of fed, unintended by the mother, in this. And
father.
Yeah, and father, sure. One thing that I was really, really particularly impressed by was the narration.
Yeah.
And the tone you set with the narration, which you don't usually hear so subtly in movies, like so almost seemingly like unconscious, stream of conscious kind of narration. Can you tell me like how you decided on that and how important it was for you maybe to set that tone?
Yeah, I was terrified of using narration because it's one of those techniques that can go bad. You know what I mean? Like there's so
Yes.
many movies that are just
Absolutely.
killed. I, of course, think of the famous example of Blade Runner when Harrison Ford did that. You could tell he didn't even want to say anything. He was just like droning on. Blade Runner is so much better without that narration.
Yeah.
So I was very nervous about it, but it can work. Like Morgan Freeman, of course, in Shawshank Redemption. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I could just listen to that all day.
Yeah.
So I had a cut of the film that did not have narration, and I felt it didn't quite work because the audience didn't really get a full opportunity to know what's going on with Gilbert, with his psyche, with his struggles, with his joys. So I felt like I had to put it in. So I walked into it kind of nervously, and I did a lot of, rewriting of it, back and forth with it. I ran it by my editor, Morgan Neville, and Sean Hedges, terrific editors. And it came out the way it did, and I feel like it works better. It cuts deeper.
Yes. What did you learn from directing? Does this skill set come easy for you? And actually being in the movie as well as directing. What was that like for you?
For me, it was an easy experience because I've always seen acting and my attempt at preparing a role from a director's point of view. And I'm a big fan of Harold Clurman, who wrote a book called On Directing. And I would use a lot of the stuff that he talks about in that book. For example, he writes, "The truth is like castor oil. It's bitter and hard to swallow. So make people laugh. And while their mouths are open, you let the truth in." And I thought that was great. So iGilbert starts funny with him, in the streets taking pictures, and it seems kind of silly. And then, wham, you hit them with the dramatic stuff. But directing came easy. The hard part for me was producing, because I would be like seconds from doing a love scene with Dasha, or working with Raul Castillo, who's terrific in this movie.
He's been on my show. He's been on the show.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Oh cool.
I love him. Yeah.
Did he talk about me?
He did. I cut that part out.
Yeah, as you should.
He had his druthers.
He had his druthers, man. Fuck him. But anyway, I was like seconds away from working with these guys, and then all of a sudden, the line producer, "I need you to sign these checks before lunch." I'm preparing a scene. What are you talking about?
Oh, God.
I know, but if we wait until later, then it's going to get really... So, shit like that. Wow. Or like, I had crew like leave for... Their druthers was to make more money than I was paying them. And so I would just like flip out and panic. Because all of a sudden, people who could not do things were asked to do things they were clearly not qualified for. And, the stress of that really almost killed me.
Yeah.
Because this is it. I sold my property to finance this movie. I'm all in,
Yeah.
And I wrote, produced, starred, and directed.
Yeah.
So every day was just like critical to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, doing producer stuff, anything having to do with money, like it's like being thrown, cold water. You just don't.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, directing, acting, talking to the actors, working with them, that felt right.
Yeah.
And I hope they feel the same way.
Yeah.
Now that it's done and it's like it's coming through the birth canal, I guess you would say that. You could see the head. It's crowning.
She's crowning.
How are you going to stop this? I don't know how to do this analogy. Everyone's told me to stop doing baby analogies.
Yeah.
How are you going to stop this baby from head hitting the floor?
Well, first of all, it's okay if the baby hits its head.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to actually have a kid. I was so panicked by that.
Yeah.
Like when her name is Rachel. When Rachel was just a toddler, oh my God, the slightest thing, she would fall down and
Yeah.
hit her head against, oh my God, call 911. And one time, I think she swallowed a penny, and we went to the ER, and we're like, oh my, I was just so, the brain is designed to withstand a lot. It's basically it. And so will this movie, you know. Some people will love it, and some people will think it sucks. Some people really will just, I have no idea where to put my brain with this, because it's not a typical movie.
Right.
I've never seen a movie like this before, and I've seen a lot. But, you know, I just feel like, I like what David Lynch's approach is. You know, you do the movie, you let it go, and it finds its place.
Yes. Yes.
And you just surrender. But you have to live in faith. And I took the biggest, we talked about risk before. I took the biggest risk ever doing this movie. Doing it with my money, doing it with my time, bringing in friends to work in it, putting it out there. And I can live with that. I can live with that because I showed up for myself. And that's why, if anyone takes anything away from this interview, I hope it's that. Show up for yourself. Be prepared. Do your thing. And just relentlessly pursue your dream, because no one else will. I just went to the new MoMA. And
how is it?
It's gorgeous. It's basically got two buildings interconnected, and it's a big, much more expansive, and there's much more light. I love it. And I'm sitting there in front of the Matisse painting Dance.
Yeah.
And those of you who don't know it, it's five women kind of like dancing in a circle and
holding hands.
Yeah, and their use of color, it's gorgeous. But there's a stillness and a beauty to it that inspires me as an actor to remember that not every moment when you're performing should be rushed. Sometimes it's just enough to be still. It's just enough to look at the other actor in the scene and just connect with him. Hold hands in that dance. Because when you act, there's a lot of people and there's a lot of noise from the crew and whatever. But basically, when you act, it's just you and the other actor, and you're just holding on. Like the people in Matisse's Dance, you're just holding on. And you feed me and I feed you the energy. And that's the scene. And everything else goes away.
Adrian Martinez, thank you.
Hey, Peter, thank you.
Let's do this
Listen,
again.
if I had my druthers, I'd do this tomorrow.
You have them.
Thank you.
When are we getting together?
Back to One is a production of Filmmaker Magazine, which is a publication of IFP, the Independent Filmmaker Project. Listen to back episodes of this podcast at filmmakermagazine.com or wherever you get your podcasts.